turn to someone, give them a high five, and say, hey, it's going to be a great word today. And go ahead and grab your seats. Yes. And as you're grabbing your seat one last time, why don't you give a good shout and clap to everybody watching for Local City Church online. Come on, somebody. So excited you're here. Yes, great to have you. Get your notes out as well. You can follow along with the notes that you got in person when you arrive today, or you can take your phone out and tap it to the disc in front of you to follow along digitally if you like to keep those notes with you. But I love being able to bring God's word to you today. If we haven't met yet, my name is Ryan. I'm the lead pastor here at Local City, and it's a great time to be back at church and back into the things of God. I look forward to Sundays so much. We were talking about one of those signs outside that we hold. I was talking with one of the host team members, and it says, it's a great day to be in church, and it truly is a great day to be in church as we head back to school, but also it's a great day to be in church because if you missed last week, or if it's your first time here, we are finishing out a season that we have called 7 Days of Prayer and Fasting, where we take time to really seek the Lord alone. Like we disconnect from the things of the world and we connect to the things of God through prayer and fasting, which is communicating with the Lord, and fasting is disconnecting from some of those things that we allow to be distractions. You know, I gave a couple of the people I know in the church a challenge to, we didn't have it Monday because of the storm, but Tuesday through Friday, we had morning prayer at 6:30 a.m. at our HQ, which is just a few minutes from here, and I challenged a few of the people I know, hey, be there every single morning if you can. And there were a handful of people that were, and I got a text from a guy in our church Friday afternoon. He said, hey, thanks so much for the challenge to be there every morning because I feel a deeper connection with God and a closer connection with our church than I ever have before. And what I was reminded of, that, man, when we seek God first, all these things are added unto us. And so here you are, Sunday, seeking God first, whether it's your first time or you call Local City home or you're watching online. I believe when you plant yourself in God's house, the best is yet to come. And so we're closing off those 7 days of prayer and fasting. And one of the things I would love for everybody in the room for first service and second service, and even if you're watching online, to do is to come back this evening for our Heart and Soul worship night. It's at 6:30. We're going to start right at 6:30, right here in this room. We were going to do it last week, but we don't want to ever put our church in jeopardy of safety. So we postponed it a week, and I know it's the night before school, but let me just tell you, man, we're going to start right at 6:30. We're going to end at 7:30 to get you home, and I just believe that, man, it's a season, it's a semester of school where I know my kids could use a little bit more worship, a little bit more prayer over them. So I would encourage you just to make the investment to join us tonight. We're going to have childcare for ages 2 to 5. If your kids are older than that, bring them in because it's great to worship as a family. If they're younger than that, don't worry. I've had 2 babies, so I can speak through any cry or anything like that. But I just want you to be in the room tonight for the whole thing or for as much as the night as you can, because I truly believe for 2 reasons. Our culture, our society, our city needs the church worshiping over them and praying for them, and so do our kids and our families and our teachers. But also I believe it's going to be a great kickstart to a truly miraculous, powerful season in our church. So there is no pressure, but I do believe there is a lot of purpose in tonight, and that's why I'm inviting you to join me and the rest of our church for Heart and Soul tonight, because worship really is the heart and soul of how we get by. Well, today, the title of today's conversation is Living on Purpose. If you want to, again, get your notes out, get ready, because it's going to be an awesome conversation today. But again, the title of this morning's message is Living on Purpose. I love this idea that I have purpose and you have purpose. Turn to the person next to you, give them a little elbow and say, hey, don't forget you have purpose. Just remind them that, okay? And I think the 2 greatest days in our life are when we're born and when we find out why. One of my favorite leadership gurus is Simon Sinek, and he became famous because he gave a TED Talk called Start With Why. You can do any what or go through any how if you know what your why is. And if I were to go to you and ask you what your why is, maybe you would have an answer, maybe you wouldn't, but after today I pray that your why would be very clear of why you're here, of why you've been placed on this earth. I love what it says in Psalm 16:11. This is King David speaking, and he says this, you will show me the way of life. There is one way to live our life. And what happens when we live that way? You grant me the joy of your presence, God, and the pleasures of living with you forever. If you're looking for a verse to pray each morning in your first 15, here it is right here. You will show me the way to live. I need direction a lot of times. There's a lot of times in my life I don't know what to do as a parent, as a husband, as a pastor, and I need to surrender to God and say, God, show me what to do. And I know that when you do that, It's not going to be hard-pressed. I'm not going to feel burdened or stressed. What does it tell me in Psalm 16? That it's just joyful to be living with you and walk in your presence. And there's pleasure living with you forever. I want you to know today that when you have a relationship with God, it puts joy inside of you. You can smile when you worship. You can smile when you pray. You can have joy in your life. If you've never heard that before today about church, please let that sink deep into your soul today, that God wants you to have joy. Come on, we can have some joy in the room real quick. There we go. There we go. But sometimes we just need help figuring out all these things. So I'll tell this story, later on and maybe a message in the future. But in the last 10 days, our second car that was paid off exploded. Not really exploded, because I probably wouldn't be here because it's my car, but it did totally die. And I want to save that story for later because it's a great story, and I need all the message illustrations I can because I preach a lot, right? But I had to go get a new car, and had to do it in like one day because with 2 kids, and right now we're living about 45 minutes away with my mom because we're trying to sell our house. You know, when you add one thing, why not add a million things, right? And so I remember going to get this car, and it's really a blessing. We were able to get for the right price a newer car than I've really ever had before. And so I'm looking at this car, I'm like, man, there's this giant screen, there's a whole bunch of buttons. I don't know what any of these things do because I'm not used to all this, right? And so the first thing I had to do was get out that manual and like, okay, what's the, oh, wow, that, oh, man, I didn't even know cars could do that, right? And I'm going through this manual, it telling me this button has this purpose and this screen has this purpose, and when you turn that, that's going to happen. I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful. And it reminded me, I just want you to know that when you're looking at the dashboard of your life or just looking at the craziness of your life and you're like, what's that for? What does that do? Can you please just open your glove box and pull out the manual of God's Word, and you'll begin to be enlightened and realize, I didn't even know God could do that. I didn't even know my life had that kind of purpose. I didn't even know God wanted to answer those type of prayers. I didn't know I could laugh and have fun in church. Whoa! That's what we want for you, and that's what God wants for you. But here's the thing, here's the decision point of this morning, kind of the tension and challenge of our conversation today, if you want to write this down, is that you have to put yourself in the right environment for the best version of you to happen. Yeah, I'll let that one sit a little bit as you write it down. The best version of you isn't just going to accidentally happen. If I were to go plant a seed in my house, in my garden, and I never watered it, never gave it any sunlight, it would not grow. So a lot of times we think growth spiritually happens accidentally or just by chance, but that's not true at all. The best version of you is going to happen and grow intentionally. And the first thing you have to do is place yourself in the right environment. Today, you are in the right environment for your life to grow and for you to become the best version of you. The best version of you is not the most successful version. The best version of you is not the most accepted version. The best version of you is not what you've designed or not what I've designed in myself. The best version is who God has created me to be. And the only way I learn about that is planting myself in God's house and planting myself around God's people. We're getting ready to start our small group semester here soon next month, what we call circles, because it's about being in rows on Sunday, but getting in circles during the week because you need me and I need you and we need each other. You should all be in a circle, and if you want to lead a circle at any point today, you can tap your phone to the disc and fill out our semester application form, because we believe the best version of you is going to happen in God's house and with God's people. And here's the biggest thing that I want you to know about your life, is that God created you for significance, not just survival. Does it feel like who would raise their hand and say, you know what, sometimes I'm just trying to survive in my life? Come on, somebody. Car blowing up, 2 kids going to school, trying to buy a new house, trying to sell a house. Like, it's a lot. And sometimes it feels like every day is I just got to survive and get through the day. But that's not what your life is supposed to be. And when you live that way, years and years will pass by and you'll be like, oh my gosh, my life went by in a blink of an eye. But when you live with significance, you realize, man, my life has substance. My life has purpose. My life has meaning. The title of today's conversation, Living on Purpose. I'm not just living for myself. I'm not just living the way the world tells me. I'm not living lazily. I'm living on purpose because my life has the breath of God inside it. So I'm going to live with some significance and make sure I'm not just surviving. Are you with me today, local city? Come on, come on, come on. I know the daily grind of work and tasks and doing can feel like you're just trying to get by and survive, but that is not why God created you. I want you to know that you have a deep purpose inside of you, and it is God-given. God intentionally, from the very beginning of the Bible, calls himself our Father. And what does a good father do? Gives you identity and tells you who you are and tells you what your purpose is. And we need to take time to listen to God and listen to his voice and start believing that, man, God has a purpose for my life, and I want to have a crazy God-sized dream built from that purpose. Jesus understood who he was and what he was here for better than anyone else that ever existed. Because he was the Son of God, yes, but he was also what the Bible calls the Son of Man, which means he was here to serve man. He was here to serve humankind. So he pretty much lived this beautiful life that we should imitate, knowing that he was from God, he was the Son of God, but also who he was as a human. He spent time with God every single day where God would continually, his Father would continually remind him and tell him who he was and what he was here for. And if you go through the Gospels, you begin to see these purpose-driven statements that Jesus gives about why he's here. Let's just go through the Gospels real quick. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." Matthew's Gospel was written to the Jewish people, and the Jewish people were very weighed down by religious have-tos and don't-dos. It was all built on behavior. Like, do this and God will love you more. Don't do this, or if you do, God will love you less. You ever felt like that before? That's what religion does to you. And Jesus came to write Jesus' life, and Matthew wrote it down saying, hey, Jesus came to give us rest so that we don't have to be so burdened. So we don't have to just survive. I know I could use a little bit more rest in my life. And I'm not just resting in myself. I'm resting in the friend that I have of Jesus, the Son of God who gave his life for me and is alive today, that when I worship him and I say, you won't fail, I'm building my life on you. I'm not singing to a dead God or some religious figure. I am singing to the Son of God who has forgiven me and set me free. And here at Local City, we so desperately want you to know that Jesus in your life. He came to give you rest. In Mark, it says this, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and give his life as a ransom for many. Mark is my favorite gospel, if I'm allowed to say that, because it's the shortest one and I'm a little ADD. But also Mark gets right to the point. He immediately jumps in to all the miracles of Jesus, of how he served people. The theme of Mark's gospel is that Jesus is the suffering servant, meaning he is living his life, whether through good times or bad times, to simply care for those around him. That's what the Son of Man title means. Like, he is here to serve God's people. And he didn't come here to be served. He came to serve and give his life. So for us, how can we expect any less of a call? That yes, we are giving our life and surrendering our life to Jesus, but now we're here to serve and care for his people. In Luke, it says this, in 19:10, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. Luke, he's a doctor, and so he's really into specifics. And he says, hey, here's the specific things that Jesus has come to do. He's come to seek and save those who are lost. What are we lost in? Our sin, our mistakes, our past. And Jesus has come to redeem those things. Jesus has come to seek and save you and shine light in the darkness and bring you out of that lost feeling and into that found confidence, knowing that I was once dead, but now I'm alive. And the specific thing that Jesus came to do was seek and save those who are lost, to go to those who are hurting, to go to those who feel alone, to go to those who have made mistakes in their past, like all of us, and let them know, because of the cross and resurrection, you are forgiven and set free. If you're thankful you've been found today, come on, let me hear you this morning. And then we go to the final gospel, John 10:10. It says this, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John's gospel is the gospel of love and relationship. Actually, John referred to himself, I don't know if you have these people in your life, but I feel like John was kind of that guy in the disciples group where he referred to himself as the disciple Jesus loved. Okay, man, all right, we get it, all right, Jesus loves all of us, okay? But his gospel is centered on this idea of what Jesus has come to give is life and life to the full. And maybe some of us don't even feel like we have life right now. We feel like God's a million miles away. Or maybe we feel like our life is just surviving right now. We definitely would not categorize our life as having it to the full. Well, I'm telling you, when you live on purpose, it's realizing that that purpose is first off surrender and trusting the life that Jesus wants to fill into you. It's kind of emptying ourselves so we can be filled with the power and love and confidence and identity of who Jesus is. Remember, you're called to live a significant life, not just one of survival. And that the best version of you, which God wants for you, only happens in the right environment. So let me just give you the 4 things that we do here at Local City that we are committed to every Sunday. This is what we want for every single person in our church. And I hit two of them last week, and I'm going to finish them up today. The first one is we want you to have a real experience with God on Sundays and every day of your life. On Sundays, we come in here and worship. It's why recently we added another worship song to our service flow, because I don't want anyone in the room to miss a chance where they can experience God. Maybe you're rushing in here and you're getting the kids checked in, or you're a little late because you hit the snooze button a couple times. Hello, that's me. But we want that message portion to start off with worship, where we can all just take a deep breath. We bring the lights down a little bit so we can be reminded, man, today is about experiencing God. Yes, we love the free coffee and we love the donuts and the party after service. We love the community. But today, the main focus is Jesus and having a real experience with him and knowing that God is in the room today. And then we want you to be able to know what freedom looks like, to know that your life can be free. You don't have to just survive or feel trapped by your past or by the addictions and maybe stresses and anxieties and fears and depressions you're dealing with, but that you can know freedom. That's why we're not alone in this room. We need each other to remind us, hey, I've been there, and you can get out of that prison. You can step out of that fear. You can step out of that thing that is holding back. You can know freedom. Can I tell you, local city, today in the room and watching online, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter what you're going through, you can know the freedom that is in Jesus today. Yeah, come on. We give some thankfulness for that. Just fully commit to the clap. It's okay, all right? It's all right. It's all right. Fully commit. The third thing that we do is that we discover and find our purpose. You have a why, and we want to help you know that. You have a purpose. God does not create anything by accident. God does not create anything by mistake. You have a purpose. And when God breathed life into you, he breathed in significance and purpose. One of the most powerful or prominent seminaries in the world, the Westminster Seminary, pretty much took time to study what is the end of man. Really, in layman's terms, what is the meaning of life? And here's what they came up with. The meaning of life is simply this: to glorify God and enjoy him forever. That's the meaning of life, local city. It's not ooh, what are we here for? I know the answer to that. It's to glorify God and enjoy him forever. What does that mean? It's for us to know God personally and enjoy him together by experiencing him, by knowing the freedom he offers, by loving and serving and caring for each other and for the lost in our city as well. Remember, Jesus came to seek and save the lost. When you give your life to Jesus, that is now your mission, to seek and save those who are lost in your life. And life is so much more fun and simpler when you just trust that one purpose, right? Like, it's so hard to do two things at once. Let me just give you a little church humor. If you ever notice during worship, a lot of times during the faster songs where the team encourages us to clap, everyone's clapping. But as soon as we all have to start sing and clap, you'll hear that clapping stop really quick. Because for a lot of us, it's hard to move of God. It's hard for us to do two things at once. Can I give you permission to stop doing 2, 3, 4 things at once and just focus on this? My job, my family, my marriage, my life is to glorify God and enjoy him. Yes, come on, we can give some thankfulness to that. It's back to school, back to church Sunday. So one of my wife and I's favorite things to do every 4 years is watch the Olympics. And so I got a few Olympic stories for you. If you didn't watch the Olympics, come on. Proud to be in America. Come on, somebody. Go back and watch all the great stuff that happened the last couple weeks. But one of the stories that stood out to me came from a sport that I watch, and Adrian and I watch every single year. And don't throw up the pictures yet. But that's from the men's gymnastics team, the American men's gymnastics team. So the guys, they're not quite as good. They're nowhere near as good as the American women in gymnastics. They're always fighting for a medal. And they hadn't been on the podium or won a medal in over a decade. And so they were talking about how this team's goal was at least to get on the podium. And so on the all-around team day, when it came down to the very end, they were just a few places out of third place, winning the bronze. And it came down to one guy. And maybe you saw pictures of this guy on ESPN or on the news. But here's the picture of the men. They did win the bronze on the left. But in the middle is this Clark Kent-looking guy named Steven Nedoroscik. And you see him kind of in the zone there. He's in that zone of preparation. And if you, it's pretty small, but you can't see it. There's this kind of a scoreboard up in the top left that shows that the United States is in 7th place. And so a lot of spaces to jump. And so coming down, he was the last guy in the last rotation of the day, and his event was the pommel horse. And if you know anything about men's American gymnastics, if you watch the Olympics, they stink at this event. This is where they've lost so many medals and lost so many team competitions because it's a one of deep focus and a lot of mistakes can go wrong. And so what Stephen Nedorosik did years ago in his life, he realized that I'm not very good at any of these other events. High bar's a struggle, floor is a struggle, rings are a struggle, but I think I'm really good at pommel horse. And so he spent his whole career as a gymnast focusing on this one event for the one purpose when he would be called on. He sat through the meet looking like that, just focused, Zen moment, not Zen, Holy Spirit moment maybe if we're focusing it on the Lord, right? And what happens is it's amazing. That's why they call him Clark Kent to Superman, because he goes up to the event, takes his glasses off, and then just nails his rotation and skyrockets the U.S. into third place. And once they realized they were winning third, you would have thought they were winning gold. They were jumping up and down. They were screaming, "Let's go!" Right? They were so pumped. And it came down to one guy who said, you know what? I'm not going to worry about all this other stuff I'm not that great at. I'm just going to focus on this one thing that I know I can do better than anyone else. And man, it took over the world. It took over the news. It got more news statements than who won gold. And what I love about that is that when there's a powerful story of someone just saying, hey, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm doing. When there's a great story, no one cares about gold anymore. No one cares about who won. They care about the story. And I want you to know we can care so much about the gold or success or achieving, and our own pride can get in the way. But what God really cares for is the story of your life and your purpose that matters. Come on. So when we're called upon, we can take off those Clark Kent glasses and be the superman and superwoman that we've been called to be for the lost and those around us who need us to live out our purpose. In Romans 12, 4-6, it says this: just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. In His grace, listen to this, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. In your body, if your foot suddenly wants to be a hand, you're not going to walk that great. If your eye suddenly wants to be an ear, you're not going to be able to listen and experience the world. See, in the church, we all have different gifts. Not all of us have the gift to step up on stage and speak like this. And guess what? That's okay. Because here's the thing about I've been in church for a long time. I don't remember that many messages. Just got to be honest. So I'm letting you off the hook. You don't have to remember what I say. Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe for like 24 hours. So you can take it into Monday, right? You know what I remember? The people who listened to me. People who had mercy and forgiveness over my life, who prayed for me. And a lot of times, those people were never on the stage. They were a little bit more of an introverted person who were really great at listening. And they just wanted to listen to how things were going, and they wanted to encourage me. Like, all the gifts matter. Maybe you don't like kids. Maybe you do like kids. That's okay. Either one is fine. But we are all called to use our gifts to serve and build God's house. That is not, no one is exempt from that. And I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just reminding you of the purpose that's inside of you. So for all of us in this room, we have gifts and passions. That's the first thing. The practical step to finding your purpose is to discover your gifts and passions. Turn to the person next to you and tell them, hey, you're gifted. You're gifted. And if you're like me, you immediately call back to like being gifted in school. And that wasn't me. It was like sixth grade I was gifted in like math and history, only because I had a great memory. Once you had to be gifted with study habits, I wasn't gifted anymore, right? And so that's what we immediately think of. But all of us are gifted in one way or the other. And you're experiencing that today. People who are gifted in instruments and singing. People who are gifted in speaking. People who are gifted in hooking all that stuff up. People who are gifted in setting up signs and serving behind the scenes. People who are good at watching your kids. People who are good at smiling and holding a sign saying, we're so glad you're here. People who are good at taking pictures. We all need those people. And you have those gifts inside of you. And if you don't use it, guess what? It will die. If you don't give life and breath to something, it dies. But the thing I know about God is He's a resurrecting God. So why don't you let God resurrect that gift inside of you? For some of us, listen, I'll be honest, maybe our work schedule is crazy, but you have the gift of building prosperity and success. What is your goal? To build God's house through your generosity. To know that, man, the generosity of this house moves this house. My schedule's a little crazy, but you know what? I've built a business or I've built success that I can give back to God. And we have to use those gifts and not be ashamed of them. Be proud of them. And realize that when our gifts and our passions align, man, that's the sweet spot of life. when you find that gifting and that thing you're passionate about, man, you love this life that you get to live. When you serve on a Sunday or when you get to pray for someone or you get to do something that makes a difference in someone's life, you said, this is what I was made for. And that's what we want for you. To know that you're here to enjoy God, but also to live this statement every day. This is what I was made for. But you can't just allow those things to sit dormant. You can't just have them, I'm gifted at this, I'm going to write it down in my notebook. You got to do number 2, which is join a team. And guess what? We have the home team here at Local City that wins every Sunday. And here's the thing. This is not a, hey, we need you, please come help. Listen, we're not the lovesick boyfriend who's like, come back. No. Actually, if that's what we have to do, we don't want you if that's what it takes. We're not going to do it anyway. What I will say confidently is, hey, we want you. Because we know that when you start doing these things, God is going to move in your life and through your life. And you're going to realize, man, I never believed it before, but man, I was made to do this. I was made to make church fun for kids. I was made to hold a sign and smile. I was made to sing. Well, maybe not all of us were made to sing but from a stage, but I was made to do this. I was made to pray for someone. And I cannot believe I get to do this. I believe in this statement more so in my life than I ever have before. As we build God's house, He builds our life. And when you do these things, you will naturally do number 3, which is continue to grow. You will continually grow. Let me just tell you, you will never arrive in your faith journey until you get to heaven. Every day is constant growth. Every day is constant new depths and levels in your relationship. That's why we do prayer and fasting, because sometimes the only way to go to that new level is through praying and disconnecting from the old things. You have purpose inside of you. There's this beautiful book that Pastor RJ encouraged me to read probably a couple years ago called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And Frankl was a man who studied survivors of the Holocaust, and he discovered that the way people make it through difficult times is this quote right here that I want you to read that I think will really help you today if you want to throw it up on the screen. Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. See, I'm not a pastor here that's trying to give you a solution to all your problems. I'm trying to give you something bigger than your problems. And trusting God and serving Him, I've learned in my life that's bigger than any problem I can face. Because let me just tell you, I have noticed this in church culture, and I'm just trying to pastor you, if you'll give me permission. When life gets busy and life gets hard, I have counseled so many people who their first choice is less God, less church, less serving, less small group, less giving. And I cannot be honest with you enough to tell you that is foolish. Now listen, we're all going to go through seasons of life where we need to pause and take a step back. But all of us need to realize if we don't have a clear on-ramp back, the enemy's going to thrive. Because the enemy's going to keep, once you step off, the enemy's going to bring setback after setback, a reminder after reminder. You were good enough without it. Keep going. What do you really need that? Yes. Did God really say? Yes. So can I encourage you? The formation, the foundation of our life is knowing that we get to enjoy God, to build His house, grow and find freedom together, and then build His house, and He will build our life. You still with me, Local City? You out there today? Come on. Write this down. Number 4 is this as we begin to close, is dream again. My fear is that we have dreams in our heart that we've allowed to die. But the dream in our heart could change the world or change someone's world. Let me give you another Olympic story. I learned this story a long, long time ago, and I absolutely love it. It's a story called, it centers on this idea of the Fosbury Flop. All right? Maybe you've heard this, but it's in the track and field world of Olympics. So if you've ever watched track and field and you've seen the event, the high jump, where they jump over the bar, American just won silver yesterday, which was awesome. But the thing you don't know about that is there was a moment in that track and field event decades ago that changed everything. So let me show you a picture really quick. So on the left side is how people used to do the high jump. They used to run and kind of dive over it front ways. Or they even used to try and straddle it, which I have no idea how you do that. But one guy came along, his name was Richard Fosbury, and he was from Oregon State, and he went to the Olympics, and he had told no one that he had developed this new way of jumping. And the first time he did it, they called it, man, look at that Fosbury flop over the bar like that. And that's a picture of him on the right. But now we know, 50 years later, that's someone doing the high jump. And if you look at the graph of the world records of the high jump, when the Fosbury flop starts, the scale goes like this into the height that men and women were able to jump now because of this new way. They say that the Fosbury Flop is one of the biggest milestones in any Olympic event ever that changed the future of the sport. Because someone was willing to look foolish and be made fun of until they won the gold that year, and because they put in the work, and they had a dream in their heart. Say, hey, maybe this is a new way of doing things. Maybe it's a new way. I'm going to just go out and do it. They call it a flop, whatever. But I have a dream that maybe I can make my sport better. You need to have a dream in your heart. I know God is speaking to your dream right now. You say, maybe this dream is not for me. Maybe it's from God, and maybe I've let it die. Let me give you 5 good things. I want you to write this down on your notes today because I really want you to take inventory this week of where you're at. We are all in one of these dreams. Number 1, we have no dream. And I would be honest with you today that the reason you have no dream is maybe you have no God in your life. Maybe you feel a million miles away from God. Maybe you've never given your life to Jesus. In 2 minutes, I'm going to give you the invitation to do that. To either say it for the first time or resurrender your life. Maybe you've been living the wrong dream. Been about success. Been about prideful ambition. And every goal you set and every goal you achieve, you still feel the same level of frustration. Because it's the wrong dream. The third thing, maybe it's stale. Maybe you just haven't breathed life into it in a while. Maybe it's almost stale on the point of being dead, and it's time for God to shock it back into existence, to shock it back into reality through things like prayer and fasting. Maybe it's vague. Maybe you're like, I kind of see it. The only way you get something vague to clear is spend more time seeking the one who's speaking it over your life by being in his church, being in his house, being around his people. And number 5 which is the goal for every one of us, maybe you're living in it now, is a God dream. The only reason I'm here is because of God. You are sitting in a God dream that he gave Adrian and I. Let me tell you, God's faithful. I didn't always feel like dreaming this dream. Some days it was hard. Every day, I'll be honest, every day is hard. Sunday on the drive home. Oh, man, that was the worst message ever. Oh, I don't know what's coming next week. I'm human. It happens. But I know that when I hear stories of people's lives and families, man, this is a God dream. I want you to know that is what you should never settle for less than in your life. Is to be looking at your life, man, this is a God dream. My marriage is a God dream. My family is a God dream. What I'm putting my hands to is a God dream. How I'm able to serve and give generously into the house that God's planted me in, that is a God dream. That's why we have these serve days and consistent things that we do to make a difference outside these walls. So people can say, man, I can't believe I get to be a part of this. John 15:11-12 says this, I have told you these things that you may be filled with my joy. The joy of Jesus is unlike any other. And yes, your joy will overflow. Woo, I like that word. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way that I have loved you. And as the band comes up, I'm going to finish these practical steps. We're going to close right here. Here's simply how do you build that God dream? How do you dream again in your life? Here's the first one. Pretty simple. Serve God by serving others. The way you want to love God deeper is to love the people he loves. I'll just be honest with you. You know who I love in my life? People who love my kids. Because I know they're crazy. I know they got a lot of energy. But I'll be honest with you, my favorite people, and I'm just going to be honest with you, my favorite people at our church are our teachers and kids who make it fun for my kids that want to run into church. My sons who want to run in and be here, who want to worship Jesus because they're loving who I love the most. And God loves you a lot, but you're already in the family. He loves those who feel lost too. And he's like, hey, I know what you got going on, but we got some people we got to reach as well. I have 2 kids. Imagine if I lost one of them and you said, hey, one of your kids is lost. And I said, it's okay, I got another one. I mean, you call child service on me like that. But our life lives that way in response to what God's called us to do. Well, it's pretty full room. God, you're doing all right. There's an empty seat next to you. There's a lost person in your life that you need to fill that with. Church is a terrible place to go to alone. Movies, I go to alone all the time. I don't want anyone sitting next to me. Church, I don't work that way. I want people to sit next to me. I'm constantly inviting people. I'm constantly sending out texts and tags and Instagram and invite cards. Because that's how my life was changed. That's how you do number 2, give generously. Give with your time, your talent, and your treasure. The goal is for us to be doing all 3 of those, but all of us should be doing at least one of those consistently. The third one is share your faith. That's why we gave you these little cards today. Next week, we start a collection of talks called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. I only gave you one because I believe there should be 2 Sundays a year, only 2, not even 3, 2 Sundays a year where you say, you know what, this Sunday, I'm not coming alone. I'm bringing someone. You don't have to do it every Sunday, but 2 Sundays a year, and next Sunday's a great Sunday to bring someone into the house, to hand someone this card and say, hey, I know you've been going through it in your marriage right now. I know work is really tough right now. I know you've had some bad reports recently. But man, my church is having these talks I'm excited about called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And I want you to sit next to me next week. I go to the 9:30. So I can't wake up that early. Okay, I'll go to the 11. I'll sleep in too. They got free coffee. But I'd love for you to sit with me so you can hear the power of Jesus and what he's done in my life. Man, if you don't feel confident telling someone about God, we'll do it for you. But I think we've all been mandated. And the purpose in our life is to love God and love others. So today, as we close, I'm going to pray over this card and pray God would put someone's name on your heart. Because here's the last thing I want you to write down as we close. God has a purpose for your life that is immeasurably greater than anything we could design ourselves. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes with me? Why don't you just hold on to that card that I gave you real quick. God, we know that you love us as your family, but we know today that your heart breaks for those sons and